I'm Nicola Talent, and you're listening to Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the sins of the underworld. We're Ireland's top podcast for 2025, and now we've got a new website. So if you want to learn more about crime and criminals, if you want stories, extras, and podcast subscriber specials, go to www.crimeworld.com. I haven't heard that for a while. We're recording.
Yes.
And I'm back.
How long is it? 6 weeks?
Yeah, it's a while.
Yeah.
You've been in this seat?
I have.
Because it's actually so high. It's for smaller.
That's not fair now.
Height restriction.
Yeah, no, there was stuff going. I had Chloe monitoring Niall Donald fatigue. It was a syndrome that I was certainly suffering from a bit of it myself. Getting sick of the sound of my own,
listening to your own voice and going home and being quiet and all the rest of it.
Well, it's great to have you back.
Thank you.
You didn't, and you obviously didn't have a chance to give me my Christmas present.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I have it all wrapped. It's sitting lonely. I actually took down the tree yesterday.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. No, I've been off for 6 weeks, which is probably one of the longest time periods in my life that I've actually been off. And yet I managed it.
You did? Did you? Wasn't too stressful?
No, it wasn't too stressful. I did wonder on the way back, how do I actually find time to work?
Yeah.
Because you get into this sort of like mode when you're not working.
Which is like kind of normal people mode, basically.
Is it normal people mode?
Think so.
Do normal people get to sit and watch movies? And
I think they probably do. Yeah. I think they probably. It's not unreasonable.
And think about things outside crime.
Yeah.
Mind you, I did watch a full wallop of kind of gangster movies and a lot of stuff I wanted to get back to. So,
but you came and you've come back in with a bundle of energy.
A bundle of energy and a new kidney.
Yeah.
Well, not a new kidney, no, but certainly a repaired kidney. Everything is good.
Yeah.
So
I said to somebody, she'll come back now full of energy, and I said, hopefully it's directed towards Crime World, improving Crime World, because it's really bad when she turns her sights on you and how you should improve as a person.
Well, we did have a meeting earlier.
Yeah.
And thank you, by the way, CK, for my Werther's original. I shared them round.
Which is not Christy Kinnahan, by the way.
No. But I mean, if Christy
clear.
Kinnahan Senior would like to send me some Werther's original, I'll have them tested. I'll actually give one to you before I eat any. But we did have a meeting this morning, and we have so much on the go because, of course, most importantly, and unfortunately, while I was laid up, we launched crimeworld.com, the new website. And we're going to have lots more exclusive content on that in the coming year. Quite exciting, looking at the calendar ahead and things we have in train, things we are planning to do. And it's going well.
It's going well.
Yeah,
no, the site has gone great. It has a great, very successful launch. And we've got big plans. I mean, I suppose when you set up something new the first month, you worry about technical issues and all of that. But it's great to go into the new year and really look to expand ourselves.
For anyone who hasn't looked yet, it's basically, another arm of Crime World where there's going to be lots of content. Some of it, the usual content of the court stories, the updates on various stories we talk about here a lot, and some breaking news. But mainly we're going to go for sort of bespoke, deep dive stories, some of which will relate to what we're doing here in the podcast, and others will be just completely exclusive subscriber-only content. In the same way, some of the stuff we're doing on the podcast, by the way, we're not going anywhere, folks, anyone listening or watching, we're going to be still here, but there will be sort of exclusive content that will be available on that website for anybody.
I suppose our bigger
projects will be going there.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of them. Now, while I spent the past few weeks at home, feet up, watching some movies, fires lit, out walking, did a few little bits, managed to get in a few nights, I have to say, with a little bit of veno collapso. But apart from that, I was really enjoying myself. But I was watching as Enoch Burke went back to prison on a contempt of court issue. Now, for me, contempt of court, because it is basically, a judge can decide if somebody has been in contempt of court. It's essentially being rude or arrogant to the courts and to the judges, essentially. But I always used to kind of roll around in my bed if I was covering a trial worried that my phone would go off in the courtroom, because there was always this threat that if it did and you disrupted a case or anything like that, you could essentially be done for contempt of court, or so the fear is instilled in you anyway. And of course, as everything started getting connected between my watch, my iPad, my phone, and in the days when I would have had a few phones, it was really worrying to go in to make sure everything was switched off, just in case I'd end up behind bars for something silly.
Yeah, like contempt, like a judges have very strong powers in Irish democracy and in democracies across the Western world. I mean, probably in the world in total. So they really are kings of their own castle, I think they call it, in their own courtroom. There's the government can't interfere. The police can't interfere. They really have these incredible powers. And one of them is to hold people in contempt of court. So it can be for something small, shouting out, there's always warnings about people not,
And usually there would be warnings. And usually people, if a phone did accidentally go off, wouldn't be landed down in the Docus Centre. It's just an irrational fear I have.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically the contempt of court is where it obstructs justice or undermines the court's authority. But, the most, I suppose, there's the little breaches of people shouting out if somebody's found guilty or not. But the major breaches are ignoring court orders. Now, court orders are again, they're very powerful forces in Irish society. I mean, you don't have an option of obeying them or not. And if you choose not to obey them, which is quite rare, I mean, most people, by the time they go through a court process, no matter what the order is, no matter how people feel, whether it's fair or unfair, they tend to obey it to within as much as they can. Even, people of, very heavily involved in criminality.
Exactly, because they do not want to go to jail. No. While people, I suppose, involved in criminality can do their time should they need to. Most people are standing in court going, please God, don't let me go to jail here. Let me get a suspended sentence. I'll apologise. I'll do whatever it is I can to avoid that.
And by the time they get to the court, they really you get beaten down when you go into a court to realise I'm actually powerless here. The court has such authority. Yeah. So most people, when they get a court order, they more or less obey it. But obviously Enoch Burke is a totally different story. And he is, I think, over this Christmas, I don't know the exact number of days, but it's well over.
I'll tell you.
Go on.
Okay. So since September of 2022, in 4 separate periods, he spent almost 570 days in prison. Yeah. That is a lot of time.
I mean, that is, it's a huge amount of time. Yeah. It's a record amount of time.
And the dispute with Wilson's hospital school began in that previous May of that year, 2022. Yeah. And the principal asked teachers to use a new name and to use they, them pronouns for a particular pupil, right? Yeah. And those issues arose then when Enoch Burke objected to it on the grounds of his religious beliefs.
Yeah, so it's a very complicated story. It's often being framed in certain ways, depending on what publication you read. Enoch, the school, this was a general thing asked of the school. Enoch Burke, it was heard on one of the hearings that he confronted the principal. Somebody gave evidence that one of the teachers gave evidence they had to separate them. There was no threat of violence, but that there was certainly a very tense moment, and ultimately he was suspended, and this really began the process of the court hearings because he was suspended. He obviously has said he believes he was suspended because of the issue of the transgender issue. However, the school have always maintained it wasn't to do with the transgender issue or not, and he was never directly asked to.
But he kept showing up at the school, so the school took an injunction against him, and that was the beginning of the legal battles, which really doesn't show any end, does it?
Well, it doesn't show any end because obviously Enoch Burke has taken a stance, and in fairness to him, he spent, approaching 2 years in prison as a result. So it is a stance of principle. He doesn't have to be in prison because he can purge his contempt, because basically the court ordered him to stay away from the school, and he is saying, I'm not staying away from the school. I mean, that's what it basically comes down to.
And we see the constant videos in social media, and of course every now and then there's very funny content goes around, imitating himself with a satchel, being in various parts of the world and places and all the rest of it.
Of course, and it's a story that's gone absolutely everywhere around the world. Now, I mean, he is certainly, as far as we can tell, the person who spent the longest in prison for contempt. There was a guy
in this country.
In this country, there was a guy called Niall Donald down in Limerick. I did a lot of stories about him at the time. It's well over a decade ago, probably 2011. And he spent a full year in prison. He had a dispute about a piece of land that he believed was to be left to him by two elderly brothers. He said they promised him this land. However, it wasn't in any will that they wrote, and the land went to a relative, and he refused to vacate his claim, basically.
Yeah.
And he spent a year in prison, in Limerick prison, mixing with the Collopys and the Keens, and, very ordinary rural farmer guy. And, I wrote a lot of stories about him at the time. I mean, he took a stand on a principle, and he went to prison. Eventually, he was actually released. He never fully purged his contempt. The world had moved on in the meantime. And the court decided there's no point keeping you in, basically.
And Enoch Burke is in Mountjoy.
He's in Mountjoy.
Which can be a tough prison.
It can be a very tough prison. I mean, it's undoubtedly a tough, rough place to be. It's chronically overcrowded at the moment. We do stories every week about attacks that occur, violence. Look, by all accounts, Enoch Burke, holds himself well in there. I drove past Mountjoy over Christmas, actually, and there was a protest outside. There was about 20, 30 people. So regularly when I'm driving home, you'll see people outside protesting in favour of Enoch Burke outside Mountjoy, with sort of tricolours and.
But the issue he has, Burke, is really against the courts and the judges. He says have not dealt with them properly and should never have recognised those injunctions in the first place.
Exactly,
like the prison is not where his.
No, it's not his. No, it's not his gripe. Is not with the prison. I mean, his gripe is with the courts and the justice of the orders that have been placed against him.
So does he keep coming back up to the courts? And because sometimes this story has gone on so long, sometimes you pay heed to it and sometimes you don't. But I suppose he's regularly called back to court to be asked, does he want to
purge his contempt,
and I suppose apologise really for his actions.
I don't even know if he has to apologise. He has to just agree to abide by the order, keeping him away from the school. I mean, the bits that...
The longer you get into a thing, the harder it is to back out. How do you backpedal out of that now, you wonder?
Well, I don't know. I mean, and he has obviously been given opportunities, because initially he was being let out during holidays when the school wasn't sitting. So he could appear at the school, but it wouldn't matter because the school was effectively closed down. So he was being allowed out, and the different judges at the time said, if you don't have to come back in, basically, if you just agree to stay away. But like, he's taken this stance. Now, obviously, you spoke about the memes, so there are people who some of it in good humour, make jokes about him. There's obviously then the people that are protesting outside who he's become a real hero for. But it's, so there's a very wide varying opinions on it. And like everything to do with the transgender issue, it tends to give rise to very strong opinions.
And interestingly, one of his sort of vocal supporters is Tommy Robinson.
Yes.
Who's also spent time in prison in recent years for contempt of court. Now, Robinson is a far-right, sort of a very high-profile individual from the UK who has visited Ireland and who kind of did a tour and created some documentary project around Ireland where he was sort of going around suggesting that women were being stalked by foreign men in every town in the country, and that women were terrified to go out on the streets because of this. Utterly ludicrous. But nonetheless, in the UK, he was only released from prison last May, and he had served 7 months for contempt, far less now than his hero Enoch. But he has described him as an actual hero for protesting against transgender ideology, and he's praised him for fighting the good fight.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Robinson was obviously jailed in relation to a libel case that was taken against him by a student, and he was told to take down certain things off social media, and he refused to do so. So Tommy Robinson would be 7 months would be a very long time to spend in prison. There was an American guy called, which they have great names, some of the American guys, don't they? But he's called H.B.T. Chadwick.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if H is an actual name, but it's given on its own. But he had the record because he spent 14 years in total in jail for contempt of court. He'd been a very wealthy guy, and he'd gone through this high conflict divorce.
Right.
And the divorce, as part of the divorce, it was said he'd hidden millions away from the wife. And he claimed that the money had been lost or whatever, that it wasn't there to be gotten. So he maintained it just wasn't there, but the court didn't believe him, and it put him in prison for 14 years.
Which clearly he chose over any sort of...
paying up your one.
Yeah, paying up perhaps.
I prefer to go to prison than give her the cash.
Than give her the money.
But eventually he was released. Basically they said there was no purpose in keeping him in prison. And this, of course, gets to the point with Enoch Burke, because even the judges have said, like, where does it end?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they can't put him in prison for the rest of his natural life. Or they don't want to.
Well, they don't want to, but at the same time, if he continuously breaches the orders and shows up at the school...
Yeah.
It's a bit of a sort of a situation where there needs to be...
Yeah, but I mean, the courts have sort of said, and I'm paraphrasing them now, like, where is the justice in this? Keeping a man in prison forever. So if he
looks at the US and your man spent 14 years in there, so he's a good while to go. There was a German woman by the name of Ursula Haverbeck, and she was actually known as the Nazi grandma in Germany. And she was subjected to multiple convictions because she would continually deny the Holocaust. So over the space of 20 years, she spent a full year in and out of prison, and, sort of continued to sort of be in contempt of court because of her denials around the Holocaust, right up to her death at the ripe old age of 96 in November 2024.
Yeah, I mean, and
you don't need to think good thoughts to live long, obviously.
No,
which is good for all of us.
Obviously, the very high profile one recently was Alexei Navalny, the dissident in Russia, opposition to Putin. He spent, I think, 2 years in prison for contempt and various other offences that certainly were highlighted as being by Amnesty International, saying it was basically a show trial. Like a lot of Putin's adversaries, he ended up dead. His widow, I think, has been very public, claiming he was murdered, but the prison system said he died of a natural illness. So it's interesting, the people...
They are few and far between, these people, though, really, even around... Well, I mean, we haven't got much further than within our own sort of geographical area. I'm sure in South and Central America and various other places like that, there's plenty of people.
I mean, some of them are treated as heroes, of course. There was the Rossport 5 back in the day, the Shell to Sea campaign, where they were protesting against an offshore refinery for oil, and, it was being brought through their land. There was a very big story at the time. And of course, they went to prison for defying a court order. They were treated as heroes, and we've had other protesters treated as heroes when they're held in contempt of court.
I'm sort of giggling here. I'm just going to ask you, like, is there anything that you would,
be in
really
contempt of court for?
Yeah.
No, I mean, you have to look at Enoch Burke and say, like, it is some stance to take.
It's some stance, isn't it?
And people, it's not necessarily a stance that you have to agree with in order to say it is, it is an amazing thing to, not an amazing thing, but it is a stance of principle. I mean,
how would you get on in prison?
Well, I mean, I don't think a Crime World presenter would be the ideal place, would it? I'd be off with Barbie Cardassian and Jonathan Dowdle.
Would you think so? You'd be held like that.
I think it'd have to be
23 hours. You'd get like a half an hour to do your exercise.
Yeah, well, I think so.
Suit you, actually. The whole regime of it.
Well, I'd read, so I'd be okay.
And you'd have your lunch at exactly
at the same time,
a certain hour,
and I could read.
You could read. I think it actually would suit you.
It might suit me. Yeah, it might suit me. I might end up in prison.
I'm not so sure how I'd get on.
No, you would be. Well, you'd be in the Docus, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'd be in the Docus.
Would you take up hairdressing or something like that?
I could be in Limerick prison either.
You could be.
But take up hairdressing, probably would, yeah. I definitely would quite like that.
Yeah.
And you could just...
Yeah, you could be a
chat to all the prisoners. I'd probably come out with some friends.
I think you could be quite a Queen Bee type figure in the prison.
The Catherine Nevin.
I'd be okay in my isolated cell. Yeah, you could be the new Catherine Nevin.
Well, anyway, I'm glad to be back. We've lots to do, lots to talk about. So for the moment, Niall, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicola.